Imagine this. You're standing on a racetrack, not in a stadium, not in front of a cheering crowd, just a gray, endless loop of asphalt its tail. You're not sure how you got here, but everyone you know is here too, running, gasping, bleeding at the heels, their eyes fixed on the back of the person ahead of them who is also chasing someone else. You hear murmurs, just a little further, almost there, but no one knows where there is. You take your place, you run, because stopping feels like death. Then you see it, a person calmly walking off the track, not collapsing, not weeping, just leaving, and everyone screams at them as if they've committed blasphemy. They gave up. They'll fall behind. What a waste! But you wonder, what if they weren't escaping the race? What if they were returning to life? The air here reeks of exhaustion masked as ambition. You were told you must win to be better, faster, more productive. You were told there's a finish line, a reward, a meaning at the end of this sprint. But have you ever seen someone reach it? Have you? They graduate and they're still running. They marry, still running. They make 6 figures, still running. They retire, still checking the clock, wondering if they're behind. You were handed a stopwatch, not a compass, and somewhere beneath all the noise, a tiny voice inside you whispers, "What if this race was never yours to begin with?" Have you ever noticed how every milestone you reach feels like a mirage? Like the goalposts move the second you get close. You chase grades, titles, relationships, experiences. Like a desperate collector of stamps in a passport you'll never show anyone. The applause is momentary. The silence that follows is deafening. You post your success, and it vanishes into a feed full of others doing the same, everyone clapping with one hand and clawing forward with the other. You win something, only to feel more afraid of losing it. You tell yourself, once I get this, I'll be free. But freedom never arrives, just another lap. Do you ever wonder, what are you actually running toward? Or is it possible, terrifyingly possible, that you're running to avoid something? See, the race was never designed to be finished. It was designed to keep you running, to keep you obedient, preoccupied, measured, replaceable, and worst of all, disconnected from the only person who could show you the way out, yourself. But who taught you that stillness was laziness, that wandering was failure, that choosing your own pace was arrogance? Who convinced you that to step off this track was to fall into oblivion? Here's the contradiction no one talks about. The more you succeed at the race, the more lost you become. Because every achievement you unlock with a borrowed dream, every applause you earn in someone else's theater, digs you deeper into an identity you didn't choose. And one day you wake up surrounded by trophies and realize none of them have your name on them. You were taught how to run, but never how to arrive. You were given maps, but never permission to ask if the destination made any sense. You were trained to pursue progress, but never taught how to define what kind. Isn't that strange? So now look around, at your pace, at your breath, at your destination, and ask yourself, what if you stopped? Not because you lost, but because you woke up. What if the race was a distraction from the deeper journey you were meant to take? The journey that doesn't start with running, but with remembering. Remembering what? Exactly. Let's begin there. There's a reason the race feels inescapable. It wasn't built just around you, it was built inside you. Long before you took your first step, the track had already been carved into your psyche. Not with asphalt and markers, but with expectations, metrics, comparisons. silent rules etched into your nervous system, like scars from battles you don't even remember fighting. Carl Jung once said, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents." And so the race began, not with your own feet, but with the inherited urgency of generations past. They ran from war, from famine, from poverty, and in doing so, they built a new religion, safety through achievement. Your worth, they said, must be earned, with obedience, with results, with proof. But here lies the tragedy. What began as survival became identity. You didn't choose this race. You were born into it, socialized into it, schooled into it, praised for participating, shamed for questioning it. The curriculum never included, "Who are you?" only, "How well do you perform?" So your inner world, your dreams, fears, questions, got pushed to the margins, replaced by rubrics and rankings. Jean-Paul Sartre warned us that hell is other people, but he didn't mean people themselves. He meant the gaze of others, the ever-watching eye that turns your life into a stage play where every move is measured by how it's perceived. You learn to become an actor in someone else's script, to be likable, to be efficient, to be on track. And in doing so, you traded your authenticity for applause. And here's the truly insidious part. You didn't even notice the trade. You began to believe that your value lies not in who you are, but in how you compare. Better grades, a better job, a better partner, a better body, but better always demands a reference point. You don't run for freedom, you run to not fall behind. And when everyone is running, standing still feels like a sin. Arthur Schopenhauer once observed that wealth is like seawater. The more we drink, the thirstier we become. The same is true of status, of recognition, of being ahead. You get a taste, and it's never enough. Because the race doesn't satisfy, it only distracts. It doesn't feed your soul, it only quiets your panic for a moment. But what are we all so afraid of? Maybe it's this, the silence that comes when we stop running, the uncomfortable echo of our own thoughts, the unbearable awareness of mortality, of meaning, of our smallness in the vastness. The race numbs that. It gives us momentum to avoid mirrors. Viktor Frankl, who survived the horror of Nazi concentration camps, wrote, "When a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure." Today, the distractions are faster, smoother, digitally enhanced, but the void remains, and so we become compulsive achievers, hyper-productive, addicted to doing, not because we're inspired, but because we're terrified of what stillness might reveal. But here's the psychological sleight of hand. We confuse motion with direction. We think running faster means we're progressing. But are we? Or are we just circling the same loop? Just faster. This is the hidden architecture of modern life. Your fear is monetized, your attention is harvested, and your identity is shaped by invisible incentives. You work harder, not because you love the work, but because you fear what not working might say about you. You become a brand, a product, a resume. You optimize yourself, self-improve, self-track, self-discipline. But who is this self you're optimizing? Do you even know anymore? Aldous Huxley warned us in Brave New World, not of tyranny through violence, but tyranny through pleasure, through comfort, through sedation. The race doesn't always look like suffering. It often looks like achievement, luxury, prestige. But underneath it, a silent despair festers. The despair of having done everything right and still feeling empty. You've followed the script, education, job, milestones, but you feel like a ghost in your own life, surrounded by things you were told would bring joy, but haunted by the sense that something essential is missing. What is it? You. The you that existed before the race began, before your curiosity was replaced by competition, before your playfulness was filtered through performance metrics. The you that doesn't need to prove anything to be real. But rediscovering that you feels impossible because the race is clever. It makes your self-worth conditional. It ties your identity to output. It binds your sense of belonging to performance. And so the moment you try to step off the track, shame kicks in. Lazy, unambitious, failure. The words echo in your mind like alarms. So you stay, not because you believe in the race, but because you're afraid of what might be left without it. And that's the real prison, not the system itself, but the fear of freedom. Because freedom means responsibility. It means you no longer have someone else to blame. It means facing your own inner void and asking the questions no one can answer for you. Who am I without this race? What do I want that isn't pre-approved? What if success is not climbing higher, but remembering where your roots are? These questions are dangerous, subversive, liberating, and you've been trained to avoid them. But something inside you is stirring. That tiny whisper you've silenced for years is starting to roar. You're beginning to see the race for what it is, not a path to truth, but a distraction from it. So now the tension builds, because once you see the hidden architecture, you can't unsee it. You feel it in your body, in your breath, in the aching question behind every "I'm fine." You're not just tired, you're spiritually malnourished. And now something needs to break. But before that happens, before the rupture comes, the veil must lift even further. You've seen the roots, but now it's time to confront the consequences. Not abstract, not philosophical, personal, emotional, real. Let's go deeper. You feel it before you can name it. That soft hum of unease behind your achievements. That vague ache beneath your smile. The subtle hollowness that no amount of success seems to silence. It's not loud, not obvious, just a quiet misalignment like a bone slightly out of place. You go through the motions, you perform, you function. But some part of you watches from a distance wondering, is this all there is? This is where the consequences begin, not with failure, but with success that doesn't satisfy. You've run the race well, you've ticked the boxes, met the benchmarks, played the part, and yet you lie awake at night with a strange question gnawing at your mind. Why do I feel so empty even when I'm winning? This is the psychological rot beneath the polished surface of modern life. Because when you live someone else's idea of success, every accomplishment feels like wearing someone else's skin. It may look good in photos, but it itches, it constricts, it separates you from yourself, and you begin to forget what your own skin ever felt like. Here's what they never told you. The race doesn't just waste your time, it erodes your sense of self. Every time you say yes to a path you didn't choose, you say no to your own intuition. Over time, the inner voice becomes quieter. The self you were born with, the explorer, the questioner, the dreamer, fades into the background until you're left performing a version of yourself you don't even believe in. You become what psychologist Carl Rogers called a false self, a mask layered with roles and expectations, curated for approval but deeply disconnected from your truth. And living behind a mask, even a successful one, is a slow death. But it doesn't stop there, because when you live out of alignment with your core, the body keeps the score, literally. Chronic fatigue, anxiety, numbness. You call it burnout, but burnout is not just exhaustion from doing too much. It's the soul's rebellion against doing what it doesn't believe in. Every suppressed no becomes a tension in your jaw. Every faked enthusiasm becomes a weight in your chest. Every forced smile leaves a residue in your nervous system. Over time, your body becomes a battleground between what you do and who you are. And this disconnect is amplified by the very culture that feeds the race. We live in an attention economy where everything, even your inner world, is turned into content. Your joy must be aesthetic, your pain palatable, your growth marketable. The line between performing and existing blurs until you no longer know whether you're expressing yourself or branding yourself. Do you feel that? That itch to share a photo before you've even lived the moment. That impulse to frame your experience through a caption before you've even felt it fully. That voice whispering, "Is this impressive enough to matter?" This is the subtle violence of the race. Not the loud, obvious kind, but the slow, internal erosion of authenticity. It's the tension of constantly wondering how you're perceived, instead of asking how you actually feel. And it leads to a society of ghosts, present in body, absent in spirit. We've become fluent in productivity and illiterate in meaning. We know how to grind, but not how to grieve. We know how to chase dopamine, but not how to sit with sorrow. We know how to make money, but not how to make sense of our lives. This is no accident, it's a design. Neuroscience tells us that the brain's reward system is easily hijacked. Dopamine spikes with novelty, with validation, with numerical gains, likes, followers, pay raises, status updates. But these highs are short-lived. And the more you chase them, the more your brain becomes wired for seeking over savoring. You become a junkie for forward motion, addicted to progress you never actually feel. But progress toward what? Here's the sinister twist. Most of us don't know. We're just afraid to stop long enough to find out, because stopping means confronting the emptiness, the grief, the years of decisions made on autopilot. And that confrontation can be unbearable unless we name it for what it is, the cost of disconnection. Disconnection from nature, from presence, from community, but most tragically, from the deeper self. And when we're disconnected, we don't just suffer alone. We start recreating the race everywhere we go. In relationships, we perform instead of connect. We compare instead of collaborate. We measure love by reciprocity instead of presence. We turn even intimacy into another scorecard. Am I enough for them? In parenting, we pass down the very scripts that broke us. We raise children not to be whole, but to be successful, which really means compliant, competitive, controlled. In community, we lose trust. Everyone becomes a rival, every person a potential competitor in the zero-sum game of significance. Vulnerability is seen as weakness, rest as laziness, difference as threat. And so the race infects everything, not just your career, but your soul. It shapes your faith, your art, your friendships, until life becomes a series of transactions instead of a lived experience. But the worst consequence? You forget that there was ever another way. You start to believe that the race is life, that you were born to run, that value only exists in motion, that stillness equals failure, that success equals happiness, that freedom is for the privileged, that your longing is foolish, that your questions are dangerous. You begin to gaslight yourself, and the system wins, because the best slave is the one who thinks they are free. But somewhere beneath the fatigue and numbness and productivity hacks, there is still a flicker, a small sacred ember that refuses to die. It's not ambition, not rebellion, it's remembrance of something older than the race, something deeper than performance. A knowing that you didn't come here just to compete, that you weren't born to win at someone else's game, that you are more than your metrics. And when that ember begins to glow, something shifts. You begin to question not just how to win the race, but whether to run it at all. You begin to imagine escape not as failure but as awakening. But escape isn't easy. To leave the race is to face the wilderness, the unknown, the questions that cannot be Googled, optimized, or monetized. Are you ready for that? Are you willing to lose the world's approval to find your own soul? Because that's what comes next. Not comfort, not certainty, but rebellion. Let's be honest. You've known for a while now. Something about the race doesn't feel right. But knowing isn't the same as leaving. The chains aren't just on your wrists. They've grown into your nervous system, disguised as duty, performance, and pride. So how do you rebel against something that lives inside you? First, let's dispel the fantasy. Escape is not romantic. It doesn't look like a perfect sunrise over a minimalist cabin in the woods. It looks like doubt, like failure, like loneliness, like peeling your own skin off layer by layer, realizing how much of you was never really you. But it also looks like truth, and that's where the rebellion begins. Not with revolution, not with fire and noise, but with stillness. Radical, disobedient stillness. Try it, just for a moment. Stop striving, stop fixing, stop checking. Sit with the discomfort that rises when there's no task to distract you, no notification to validate you. Let it all rise. The fear, the boredom, the sadness, the ache. Let them speak. This is the forgotten language of the self. Silence. You've been taught to run from it because silence makes room for inconvenient truths. But every meaningful journey begins not with a step forward, but with a sinking inward, into the place you've avoided most, your own interiority. Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "No price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself." But he didn't say the price would be easy. To own yourself, you must be willing to unown everything the race gave you. Titles, roles, identities, applause. This is not a resignation. It's a reclamation. So let's go there. Let's begin the rebellion in 5 acts. Act 1. Dismantle the myth of one path. The race sells a singular script, linear progress, upward motion, milestones at set intervals. But life is not a spreadsheet. Growth is not symmetrical. Real journeys loop, stall, crash, rise, and rebirth. The first rebellion is to stop worshiping consistency. You are not here to be predictable. You are not a brand. You are a living organism with seasons, each one demanding a different rhythm. Some seasons require stillness. Others require wandering. Some demand creation. Others, destruction. You break free by giving yourself permission to not know what's next. To say, I don't know who I am right now, and that's okay. Act 2. Question every should. The race is fueled by internalized commands. I should be more productive. I should be farther along. I should be like them. Every should is a red flag, an echo of someone else's voice lodged in your mind like malware. The rebellion is in interrogation. Whose should is this? Where did it come from? What if I let it go? Most of our shoulds were installed before we could choose. Family, school, culture, religion, social media, they shape your expectations without ever asking if they fit your soul. So you take them apart, piece by piece. You hold each belief up to the light and ask, does this serve my truth or just my image? Act 3. Trade performance for presence. The race trains you to perform. Always be on. Look busy, seem happy, show progress. But rebellion means learning to be seen without the costume. Imagine walking into a room without the mask. Not self-deprecating, not inflated, just real. No elevator pitch, no curated vibe, just the raw you, awkward, evolving, unsure. It's terrifying, and it's sacred, because presence invites connection, not transaction. When you stop performing, something strange happens. You feel seen, maybe for the first time, and you realize how much of your life has been a mirror game, showing others what you thought they wanted to see, hoping they'd reflect something back that looked like love. But love isn't a reward for performance. It's recognition without condition. Act 4. Create without an audience. In the race, even creativity becomes currency. You write to impress, paint to sell, post to gain attention, but the truest art, the kind that heals, is made with no audience in mind. It's messy, it's intimate, it's for you. So rebel by creating something pointless, a poem no one reads, a dance no one films, a thought you don't tweet. Reclaim the sacredness of doing something that doesn't earn you anything except yourself. Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But here's the secret: sometimes the why is simply the joy of being, not achieving, not ascending, just being. Act 5. Define success on your own terms. This is the most dangerous rebellion of all, because once you define success for yourself, the system can no longer manipulate you. You're no longer chasing likes, promotions, or prestige. You're not addicted to metrics. You're not a puppet of the algorithm. You're free. But what does success look like for you? Maybe it's waking up without anxiety. Maybe it's spending a day in silence. Maybe it's building a life so honest you never feel like you're acting. Maybe it's knowing that you could explain your choices to your younger self, and they would smile. The moment you define success in your own language, the old race loses its power, because its fuel is your fear, and you've stopped feeding it. There will be loss. You may lose followers, invitations, familiar comforts, people who only knew you as the character you played. But you will gain something unimaginable in return, a life that feels like your own. And with that life comes a new rhythm, not a sprint, not a grind, a journey, one with detours, depths, and directions that no one else can dictate. You'll begin to notice things again, the way light moves through leaves, the strange beauty in silence, the taste of time when it's not rushed. You'll start to listen, not to the noise of the crowd, but to the whisper within. And for the first time, maybe ever, you'll trust it. That whisper will not sound like a command. It will sound like an invitation to begin, to return, to remember. You are not late. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are exactly where the rebellion begins. And now, on the edge of your old world, with the map burning in your hands, you take a breath, not a race breath, a soul breath, because the final truth is coming, the truth that redefines the journey itself. You've stepped out of the race. You've begun to shed the masks, release the roles, and touch something raw, something terrifying, something real. You're not quite who you were and not yet who you're becoming. This is the in-between, the liminal threshold where the soul breathes again and the ego dies in pieces. And now comes the moment you didn't expect, not the moment of victory, but the moment of truth. A truth so profound it doesn't speak, it unravels. It doesn't reassure you, it undoes you. Are you ready? Here it is. There was never a race. Not really. The race, the path, the ladder, the script. It was all fabricated, a collective hallucination passed down like a sacred law, whispered into our childhoods, reinforced through culture, reward, and punishment. It was never a natural law. It was a story crafted by fearful minds, trying to impose order on the uncontrollable chaos of existence. A story made of numbers and names and titles. A story so loud, so convincing, it became mistaken for reality. And you? You were born into this dream, taught to forget that it was a dream, taught to trade wonder for worry, presence for performance, mystery for metrics. And yet, beneath that story, beneath all the illusions of progress and purpose, you were always free. But freedom is not what you thought it was. It's not the absence of rules. It's not travel or money or success on your own terms. Those are just more layers of the same dream. True freedom is the absence of illusion. An illusion is most seductive when it looks like progress. You thought quitting the race meant walking away from the world. But now you see, it means seeing through it. The race never existed. You were running in place inside a maze of mirrors, chasing images of yourself. Every step forward was still inside the illusion. The deeper rebellion wasn't in stopping the race. It was in waking up from the idea that you ever had to run. And in that waking, something even stranger happens. You stop trying to be someone. You just are. No longer measured, no longer improving, no longer competing, no longer narrating your own existence in third person for the invisible audience in your mind. You realize there is no destination, no gold medal, no final arrival where the suffering ends and the validation begins. There is only this moment, this breath, this version of you. And in that sacred awareness, the compulsion to fix yourself dissolves. You're not here to win, you're here to wake up. And when you do, the world looks different. Not prettier, not easier, just truer. You start to notice the tragedy in people's eyes, the deep ache hiding behind their curated smiles. You see how many are still asleep, still running, still believing in the same rules that once imprisoned you. You don't judge them, you remember them, you were them, and now you see them with something gentler than pity. You see them with love, because when you wake up, you don't ascend, you don't become better, you become softer, more human, more tender, more present. You cry more easily, you laugh more deeply, you hold silence like a sacred object. You no longer crave being right, you crave being real. You stop asking, "What's my purpose?" and start wondering, "What is this moment asking of me?" You stop hunting meaning like a trophy and let it emerge from your aliveness. You stop performing love and start being love. And slowly, miraculously, the world responds. Not all at once, not in obvious ways, but through strange synchronicities. A conversation that opens something inside you. A piece of music that feels like a memory. A stranger who says something you needed to hear. The journey shifts from effort to attunement. You're no longer pushing, you're listening. And what you begin to hear is life itself. Life not as a checklist or competition or script, but as a living intelligence whispering through your body, your intuition, your longing. And that longing, it was never a flaw, it was never a distraction, It was the compass of your soul. All those years you spent numbing it, shaming it, rationalizing it away. Those were the years you forgot your way. But now the compass is alive again, and it doesn't point to success. It points to aliveness. That's the ultimate truth, the one that undoes the entire architecture of the race. Your life was never meant to be a project. It was meant to be a poem, not structured, not linear, not measurable, but beautiful in its chaos, precious in its uncertainty, holy in its imperfection. You were never here to be managed. You were here to be met by yourself, met by this moment, met by the sacred mystery of existence. No goalpost, no scoreboard, just breathe, just being. And when you live from that place, truly, not performatively, you change the race around you. You become a mirror that reflects a different truth, one that invites others to stop, to soften, to feel. You become disruptive in the most healing way, not through rebellion but through presence, because nothing threatens the race more than someone who no longer runs, not because they gave up, but because they woke up. And now, here you are, at the edge of a cliff that isn't a fall but a flight. No path beneath your feet, no map. Just the terrifying, exhilarating knowing that the ground was never the point. You were never meant to stay grounded. You were meant to soar, so go. Not faster, not farther, but deeper. Start your own journey, not as a reaction, but as a remembrance. Walk where there are no footprints. Speak where silence has reigned. Create without comparison. Love without condition. And when you forget, because you will, come back, not to the race, but to you, the one who was never behind, never broken, never bound, only waiting to be remembered.